When it comes to creating a music mix of any kind, this is not just for this project. We can control four aspects of the mix. We can control the levels, which kind of goes without saying. We can control the pan, the left and right. We can control the frequency through EQ. And finally, we can control the depth of the sound or the distance that the sound appears in relation to the other voices. And we would do that using effects like chorus, delay, and reverb in particular. So what we want to do when we create this mix is basically build a puzzle that goes together where all the instruments have their own space in the sonic spectrum. The highs, the lows, the mids. And in the case of this particular project, we want the dialogue and the effects to really have a priority, and we want the music to accompany those things. When we talk about levels and pan, we're talking about the volume level of something, and we're talking about the left and right stereo field. But before we get into that too much, I did want to take a look at making sure that what we see on the screen also hits our ears. So literally, we're going to be using our eyes to hear. And yes, I know that sounds wrong. The things we see on the screen need to also be heard in our ears. I've grabbed just a couple of frames on a couple of these trailers, and I'm in Final Cut just to take a look at them. For example, right here, we've got a huge crash through a brick wall, and guess what? We don't hear that unless we put something into Logic there. So we're going to put some effects there. Another one that really jumps out at me is this explosion that comes straight at the camera, and we need to add something there. That's my first suggestion to you, is to make sure that your eyes and ears are working together and you're capturing some of these sounds that you need to sort of bring the polish of this project to the next level. Now I want to take a look at a few different things we can do in Logic to help us create that mix. I've got these three sections, and I'm just really at the beginning phases of this trailer score. But what I've decided to do is take some different drone and mysterious type sounds and build them in at the beginning. And then I've picked a loop that I kind of like over here. So I'm just going to focus on this beginning sound. And we've got some awkward sounds. And what I want to do is I want to get a good balance between these sounds. I don't really want a lot of that eerie drone. I just want a little bit of that texture in there. Later I'm going to come back and I'm going to add some other effects to that. I can hear those sound effects. I can hear the whoosh of the wind. Those are all things that I want to hear as well. And actually, I didn't start that beat in just the right spot, but that's okay. I'm just worried about the drones right now. If I use X to bring open the mixer, I can see that each of these drones, well, first of all, I think they need a little label. And then I'm going to call this Eerie. So there's a little bit of a balance here. And the stereo output is what I have selected here because it was by default a surround file. We've talked about leaving that center channel open for dialogue. In this case, there's some effects that need to come down the center. Well, how can we do that with a stereo file like this? How can we do it with a surround file? If we control click or right click on the pan option, we can choose binaural pan. This gives us the chance now to take that stereo file and take both channels over to the left and the right. So as these things play back, you can see you can take that whole pan over to the left channel, and it's still showing up on the channel strip in surround sound. And the way I can change that is by clicking this button right here, stereo. So I'm going to go ahead and change all of those. So it might be a good idea if I have a couple of different drones to go ahead and spread those to the left and the right channels. So I'm going to listen to it in my headphones, and I'm going to find a balance that I think is nice. This eerie one, I'm going to go ahead and leave that right up the middle, but I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. Next thing I want to look at is how I can take all three of those, command click or shift click to select them all, right click or control click on any one of those selected tracks, and create track stack. On the mixers that we've used so far, we've found out that we can create these submixes within the overall mix, and that's what we're going to use these for. Click Create Track Stack, and then you're presented with a new screen. If we just wanted to organize, we might use the folder. Flip down this arrow on the details. This is a basic track stack. It lets you mute, solo, and control the volumes. It's mostly organizational. A summing stack is a little bit more powerful. This is multi-purpose. You can use this to mix. You could use this to create a layered piano MIDI keyboard. That would be pretty cool. We could use this option to both organize and submix tracks. So I'm going to go ahead and click Create. And then now we see we've got a little summing folder, and we can flip that up or we can flip that down. And now I can use automation as I have before to bring the full volume level of all of those down below things, or I can bring it up a little bit here in the middle. So of course I'm just doing a little basic idea as this comes along here. So I hear some sound effects. Gets a little bit louder to fill that space in the middle and so forth. So that is the summing track. A turns off the automation. I would take a minute to label this. I want to know exactly which track that is. Now I'm going to skip way ahead here, and I'm going to get into the master channel. We're going to put a couple of effects on the master channel. And the first plugin that we're going to select under Dynamics is a stereo compressor. We talked a little bit about what compressors are and what the compressor is going to do. It's going to level out the mix. It's going to create a little bit louder mix without peaking and without there being these really, really high and really, really lows. But we're just going to do it very subtly. So from the drop-down menu, go to Compressor by Type and choose Platinum Analog Tape. What that does is that loads a preset then that will take the mix and bring it up a little bit smoother with the Platinum Analog Tape sound. Next, following the compressor, we're going to go back down to Dynamics. We're going to choose Adaptive Limiter. So what the adaptive limiter will do is it will set that peak level that the overall mix won't be able to cross. So here we could take the gain setting and we could boost it up as we listen to our music. It's a little softer at the beginning, so I might want to go out to a louder part once I get this music down a little bit. I like a little output ceiling that's pulled down just a little bit. Now notice as you get louder on some of your own music that you can actually get a little bit of distortion. So you kind of have to walk the line between what you like as far as distortion and what sounds good without distortion. We made some track stacks, created track stacks. We got into the master channel strip and we added compression and we added an adaptive limiter. We talked a little bit about panning and we manipulated our panning controls by right-clicking on them and taking that stereo pan and going ahead and giving us that overall pan ability. Those are some basic skills in level and pan. File those away, use it to take your trailer up just a notch or two or three.